We stay together, we survive.
To bring you the Legionnaires of Scipio Africana!
Whatever comes out of these gates, we've got a better chance of survival if we work together.
Hey there! Welcome back to our YouTube channel. In this particular episode, we'll dive into the world of ancient Rome's most fearsome fighters, the Gladiators. Join me as we step into the arena and explore the lives of these legendary warriors. Very important to note is that I'll be sharing with you 10 things you probably didn't know about the Gladiators. The word gladiator comes from the Latin gladius, meaning sword. These warriors were often slaves or prisoners of war trained to fight in brutal combat for the entertainment of the Roman Republic. The first recorded gladiatory games took place back in 264 BC, and they quickly became a popular spectacle throughout the empire. Gladiators were trained in specialized schools called ludi, where they learned various fighting techniques and styles. There were several types of gladiators, each with their own unique weapons and armor. Some of the most famous types include the Murimilo, also known as the fish gladiator, who wore a large fish-shaped helmet and wielded a short sword called a gladius. We also had the Rheterius, also known as the netman, armed with a trident and a net, who fought with agility and cunning. Thirdly, we had the Secutor, known as the Pursuer, a heavily armored gladiator who pursued his opponents relentlessly. These are just a few examples of the many types of gladiators that fought in this arena. Life as a gladiator was harsh and often short-lived because they lived in barracks within the training schools where they followed strict routines and diets to maintain their physical prowess. Now, despite their low social status, successful gladiators could become celebrities, earning fame and fortune through their victories in the arena. The gladiator games were held in massive amphitheaters, the most famous of which is the Colosseum in Rome. Now, these events were a mixture of bloodshed and spectacle, with gladiators fighting to the death or until one of them yielded. The fate of a defeated gladiator was often, but not always, determined by the crowd, who would signal their desire for mercy or death with a thumbs up or a thumbs down gesture. It is on that note that I take you through 10 things you may not know about the gladiators to clear some misconceptions. Number 1. They weren't always slaves. Gladiator bows were originally part of funeral ceremonies. They didn't always fight to death. The famous thumbs down gesture probably didn't mean death. They were organized into different classes and types. They only rarely fought against animals. Women also fought as gladiators. Some gladiators organized themselves into trade unions. Several Roman emperors participated in staged gladiatory bouts. Gladiators often became celebrities and sex symbols. As the Roman Empire began to decline, so too did the popularity of gladiator games. By the 4th century AD, the rise of Christianity and changing social attitudes led to a decrease in the demand for these brutal spectacles. The last recorded gladiator game took place in 404 AD, marking the end of an era for these legendary warriors.
Not all gladiators were brought to the arena in chains. While most early combatants were enslaved peoples and people who had committed crimes, grave inscriptions show that by the 1st century AD, the demographics had started to change. Lured by the thrill of battle and the roar of the crowds, scores of free men began voluntarily signing contracts with gladiator schools in the hope of winning glory and prize money. Now, these freelance warriors were often desperate men or ex-soldiers skilled in fighting, but some were upper-class patricians, knights, and even senators eager to demonstrate their warrior pedigree. Gladiatory bouts were originally part of funeral ceremonies. Most historians now argue that gladiator fights got their start as a blood rite staged at the funerals of wealthy nobles. When distinguished aristocrats died, their families would hold graveside bouts between enslaved people or condemned prisoners as a kind of macabre eulogy for the virtues the person had demonstrated in life. According to the Roman writers Tertullian and Festus, since the Romans believed that human blood helped purify the deceased person's soul, these contests may have also acted as a crude substitute for human sacrifice. The funeral games later increased in scope during the reign of Julius Caesar, who staged bouts between hundreds of gladiators in honor of his deceased father and daughter. They didn't always fight to death. Now, Hollywood movies and television shows often depict gladiatory bouts as bloody, free-for-all, but most fights operated under fairly strict rules and regulations. Contests were typically single combat between two men of similar size and experience. Referees oversaw the action and probably stopped the fight as soon as one of the participants was seriously injured. A match could even end in a stalemate if the crowd became bored by a long and drawn-out battle, and in rare cases, both warriors were allowed to leave the arena with honor if they had put an exciting show for the crowd. Since gladiators were expensive to house, feed, and train, their promoters were loath to see them needlessly killed. Trainers may have taught their fighters to wound, not to kill, and the combatants may have taken it upon themselves to avoid seriously hurting their brothers in arms. Nevertheless, the life of a gladiator was usually brutal and short. Most only lived to their mid-20s, and historians have estimated that somewhere between 1 in 5 or 1 in 10 bouts left one of its participants dead. The famous thumbs down gesture probably didn't mean death. If a gladiator was seriously wounded or threw down his weapon in defeat, his fate was left in the hands of the spectators. In contests held at the Colosseum, the emperor had the final say in whether the failed warrior lived or died, but rulers and fight organizers often let the people make the decision. Paintings and films often show the thrones giving a thumbs down gesture when they wanted a disgraced gladiator to be finished off, but this may not be accurate. Some historians think the sign for death may have actually been a thumbs up, while a closed fist with two fingers extended, a thumbs down, or even a waved handkerchief might have signaled mercy. Whatever gesture was used, it was typically accompanied by ear-piercing cries of either "let him go" or "slay him." If the crowd willed it, the victorious gladiator would deliver a grisly coup de grace by stabbing his opponent between the shoulder blades or through the neck and into the heart. They only rarely fought against animals. The Colosseum and other Roman arenas are often associated with gruesome animal hunts, but it was uncommon for the gladiators to be involved. Tangling with wild beasts was reserved for the venators and bestiarii, special classes of warriors who squared off against everything from deer and ostrich to lions, crocodiles, bears, and even elephants. Animal hunts were typically the opening events at the games, and it wasn't unusual for scores of unfortunate creatures to be slaughtered in a single exhibition. Women also fought as gladiators. Historians are not sure when the women first suited up to fight as gladiators, but by the 1st century AD, they had become a common fixture at the games. These warriors may not have been taken seriously in the patriarchal Roman culture, but a few appear to have proven themselves in single combat. A marble relief dating to around the 2nd century AD depicts a bout between two women dubbed Amazon and Achilia, whom the inscription says fought to an honorable draw. Some gladiators organized themselves into trade unions. Though they were regularly forced to come to blows in life or death combat, gladiators viewed themselves as a kind of brotherhood, and some even organized into unions or collegia with their own elected leaders and protected deities. When a warrior fell in battle, these groups would ensure that their comrade received a proper funeral and grave inscription honoring his achievement in the arena. If the deceased had a wife and children, they would also see that the family received monetary compensation for their loss. Several Roman emperors participated in staged gladiatory bouts. Now, hosting gladiator games was an easy way for Roman emperors to win the love of the people, but a few took it a step further and actually participated in combat. Several rulers performed in the arena, including Caligula, Titus, and Hadrian, though most likely under highly controlled conditions or with dull blades. A dead eye with a spear, the deranged Emperor Commodus often tried to win the crowds by killing bears and panthers from the safety of a raised platform. He also competed in a few gladiator fights, though usually against inexperienced fighters or even terrified and poorly armed members of the audience. Gladiators often became celebrities and sex symbols. Now, though often dismissed as uncivilized brutes by Roman historians, the gladiators won massive fame among the lower classes. Their portraits graced the walls of many public places, children played with gladiator action figures made of clay, and the most successful fighters even endorsed products just like the top athletes of today. They were also renowned for their ability to make Roman women swoon.
The gladiators of ancient Rome have left a lasting legacy in our modern world. Their stories of courage, skill, and sacrifice continue to captivate and inspire us today. From the sands of the arena to the pages of history, the gladiators will forever be remembered as the fierce warriors who fought for their lives and the entertainment of masses. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the world of gladiators. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a thumbs up and share with your friends. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.